hold it?
I held it.
You held it. I will hold it too. Okay, let's just get myself organised. So, hello everybody, I'm Caroline Russell. I'm a Green Party London Assembly member. I'm also a councillor in Islington, where I'm the only opposition councillor to 47 Labour councillors, so I have my work cut out there. But on the Assembly, my job is, I'm one of 25 Assembly members who are elected by people all across London to represent Londoners and to check that the Mayor of London is doing a good job and running the city as well as he possibly can for the benefit of Londoners. On City Hall, I'm on several committees. I'm on the Economy Committee, I was chair of that last year. I'm on the Transport Committee, and I am chair of the Environment Committee this year and next year as well. So air pollution very much falls within the things that I think about an awful lot. And with everything that Frank has just been saying to you, it just emphasises the scale of the public health crisis that we find ourselves in. And it's an invisible public health crisis, but everyone will have had the experience of feeling a bit chesty when they're walking up a hill, or just feeling a bit short of breath. Whether you have COPD or whether you have asthma, even without those conditions, the experience on a bad pollution day, if you're trying to run for a bus or something, is you do experience and actually feel what that bad air is doing to you. Now, I'm just going to give you a tiny bit of background about me, because it will kind of explain why I care about this stuff. I started out life as an artist, and I retrained in my early 30s as a civil engineer. By the time I finished the training as a civil engineer, I started it with one child, I finished it with two, and then I was pregnant with our third child. So I had a patch of being full-time mum. And during that period, I got very, very involved in my local community in Islington. The first thing that happened when I first had a baby and started pushing a pram around was I noticed that our streets are really hostile places if you're walking. It can be very difficult to get across the road. In those days, there were no parking controls, and so people would just park across the corner where the dropped curb was, and then you'd have to kind of lift your pram up and kind of shimmy between two cars trying to hold your baby up and then get across the road. These days there are parking controls in most inner London boroughs, and so you can usually get to cross the road. But you often have to wait for ages for a green man to turn up to allow you to cross, and our streets are very, very traffic-filled, traffic-dominated, noisy, and as Frank has just explained to us, they're also very polluted, even though that pollution is invisible and we can't see it. So this experience of being a new parent in London made me realise that for some residents, getting around our city is just much, much harder than I'd realised. And for anyone who's disabled or anyone who's older, actually managing to get across the road, managing to get around on foot, can be really difficult and really challenging. And it's not right that people feel a bit nervous about popping out to their local shops to pick up a pint of milk. It really ought to be possible for everyone living in London to be able to walk to their local shop, cross the road easily. So I became alerted to these problems and became very involved with an organisation called Living Streets, which started out life as the Pedestrians Association. And I became a campaigner to make our streets better for pedestrians. And that is how I ended up getting into politics. First as a local councillor. I was actually in 2009, before the 2010 elections, the Lib Dems, Labour and the Greens all asked me to stand. There aren't very many Conservatives in Islington, so no one approached me from there. But I basically, as someone who was very involved in my community, trying to improve our streets, campaigning for more crossings here and there, that is sort of what got me into politics, but also it was realising that people are actually losing their lives on our roads. So our roads, as well as producing all this pollution, people are being killed just trying to cross the road. Very often those people are older people. The incident that really made me think I want to change things was when a child was killed on her way to school. Her buggy was caught under the wheels of a heavy goods vehicle. And that family had been walking to school and their youngest child did not come home alive. And that just made me think, this is just not okay. No, in Westminster, people are being killed on the streets. On Oxford Street, people are being killed on the streets. We learn about it in the Evening Standard. And it's just, it shouldn't be like that. In the capital city, in a developed country, we really ought to be able to manage our streets so that they are safe for people to be able to walk and to get around on a bike as well. Now, Frank has told us about all the pollution. And one of the solutions is to reduce that pollution at source. But he also said that electric vehicles aren't the complete answer. It's not a question of just saying, okay, we'll swap all those cars that we had and make them all electric, and that'll be cleaner, and then it'll all be fine. Because we will still be left with the congestion, with the air pollution that comes from those electric cars, and we also will still have a community that are not actually building physical activity into their daily lives. And cars are a pretty inefficient way of moving people around a whole city. If you look at any of our streets, and you look at a street which is crowded with pedestrians, I sometimes cycle through the city on my way to City Hall in the morning, and around Bank or sort of going past Farringdon Station, the streets are just swarming with people. And the numbers of people who are actually being moved in vehicles nearby is way, way fewer than the numbers of people who are getting around under their own steam, crossing the road, walking along the pavements. So with a city that has a congestion problem, that has an air pollution problem, and also has a problem of physical inactivity, more and more of us are becoming obese, and there are all sorts of problems that then, health problems, that then come out of that as one becomes overweight. There is a solution, and that is reducing the number of car trips on our roads overall, making sure that our streets are really, really good for walking, that there are crossings where you need to cross the road, that you can get across the road to the bus stop so it's easy to use the bus. We also need to allow people to move around on bikes. The number of people who want to cycle with their children to school but are just put off because the roads are too dangerous. I cycle to City Hall every day. I've always cycled and ridden a bike in London, but I'm 56 actually. I ride a sit-up and beg bike. I'm not one of those people in Lycra who's kind of head down and tearing along. I just bumble around. And I am incredibly grateful for the bike lanes that were put in by the previous Mayor Boris Johnson and are being continued by the current Mayor Sadiq Khan, because those have made a complete difference to my daily journeys. It means I get onto that route and I just go, I can relax. I don't have to constantly look over my shoulder and check that a bus driver or a lorry driver isn't going to run me over from behind. And everybody who rides a bike or decides to walk or takes the bus is actually helping to clean up our air, because every journey that is not taken by car means fewer of those tiny little particles that Frank was just talking about, which are adding to the risk of people developing dementia, adding to the risks of heart and lung problems, which affect all Londoners from the very young to the very old. So, what the Mayor is doing about all of this is he is bringing in, he's brought in a T charge, which is a toxicity charge, which is in the central London congestion zone, and that is an extra charge that you pay if you have an older, more polluting car, and that is a charge that just gets paid on top of the congestion zone. Now, the ultra-low emission zone is going to come in next April, which again is just in the congestion zone area. There's a huge number of Londoners who live outside the congestion zone who are desperate for the Mayor to make the ultra-low emission zone bigger, because they want everyone across the whole of London to be able to trust the air they breathe. But this sort of inner bit in the congestion zone it's a start, and it's actually beginning to make companies when they change their fleet, they're thinking about what kind of fuel they're using. Are they using diesel? Can they do their business in a different way? Lots of businesses are beginning to do deliveries by cargo bike, where there's no emissions. So Sainsbury's, for instance, are doing a lot of deliveries by cargo bike. They're using the new bike lanes, so they're out of the way of the other traffic, and they are finding that their deliveries are faster when they do it by cargo bike than when they do it by a lorry, which is more polluting. So people are beginning to come up with the solutions, but it is going to be a bit of a rocky ride, I suspect, coming forward, because it is going to be a very, very big difference. And one of the important things about groups like this is with active citizens who are engaged in ideas around London, is actually making people aware that this air that we're breathing is actually not the same as the air that we were breathing 25 or 30 years ago. It is much, much more polluted. And that is because there's more diesel particulates in the air. So we have to find a way to organise our city streets so that we can trust the air we breathe, we can get around safely, and that we are not adding to the problem of pollution by the way that we arrange our transport system. And I think, the one thing that everyone in this room can do is make sure that you talk to your neighbours, you get them to understand, why was it that Boris Johnson, why is it that Sadiq Khan are bringing in bike lanes? Why is it that they're trying to discourage car journeys and encourage more people to use public transport and to walk and cycle? It's because it's one of the ways that we can actually manage to clean up our air and trust the air we breathe. And, for me, that is one of the most important things. But the side effects of better, less trafficked streets just give people, you get less noise. You can, there's a place in East London where they've done a huge amount of work to reduce the amount of car journeys that are made by filtering their side streets to stop people from rat running through from one main road to another. And people say, I can hear the birds for the first time in, 20 years or something. It's like the difference, the way that our city could be so much better a place to live if we could tackle these very, very interlinked problems of bad air, congestion, and road danger. So I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. So.